Hello viewers, welcome to this week's episode of Health Watch on Advent Cable Network Nigeria ACNN. I am Angela Emeka Ebibo. Gender-based violence is the most pervasive yet least visible human right violation in the world. It includes physical, sexual, mental, and economic harm inflicted on a person because of socially ascribed power imbalances between males and females. This can occur at any time in a person's life. Now, according to UNICEF, it is estimated that at least 1 in 3 women or girls worldwide will experience physical or sexual violence in her lifetime. According to the Nigerian Minister of Women Affairs and Social Development, Dr. Pauline Talin, out of 5,100 cases of gender-based violence, only 16 of such cases have been convicted so far nationwide. This obviously excludes all the cases that was never reported. I believe preventing this from happening in the first place is better than seeking for justice or waiting for conviction, considering the sluggish nature of convictions. So we shall be focusing our discussion today on gender-based violence. My guest today is not a new face on this program. I believe he will do a great service to this discussion. He is Dr. Olusegun Soyombo, a consultant psychiatrist at the National Hospital here in Abuja. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you, Angela.
Good to have you. I'm always excited when you're in the studio because I know we're going to learn a lot today. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
So, we have talked about gender-based violence. This is it's even personal. Not to me, but I know family members that have been through, this kind of violence that been meted out on them. And what I keep thinking, or what keeps bothering me, is what is going on in the mind of the perpetrator, which is a very big concern, because I don't know if somebody can just wake up and be wicked and want to inflict pain or harm on another person. So I want to start today's discussion, without going through all the definition of gender-based. We've talked a lot about that. But what is going on in the mind of the perpetrator, the person causing it? Is it just natural? Is it a natural occurrence or learned, or what? How do we put that?
Well, thank you very much, Angela. You have introduced me as a consultant psychiatrist, not a consultant babalawo that would know what is going on in the minds of other people. But it's an important consideration. So in other words, we'll be talking about the mental health aspects of gender-based violence. And from your question, for now, we are looking at from the part of the perpetrator. What are the things that might be responsible? I like to say very responsibly that not every bad behavior can be excused by mental illness. Therefore, we shouldn't conclude that because somebody is abusing his partner or her partner, that the person is mentally ill. Because when people are ill, what they get is treatment, not punishment. So it is good to lay that foundation. Now, gender-based violence happens within several contexts: marriage, cohabitation, just relationship, sometimes forced relationship. Sometimes it's even closer than that, because we know about incest and all the rest. So there are different contexts within which gender-based violence occurs. But if we pick marriage as one of the contexts within which it occurs, we can assume reasonably that people will marry each other because they love themselves.
Exactly.
At what point does this love turn to beating and battering and isolation and things like that? So straightforward to answer your question, can mental illness be responsible for gender-based violence? The answer is yes. Because if somebody, for example, has the abnormal belief that the spouse is cheating, and that can be an abnormal belief that is on the background of a mental illness, and then you've probably heard of pathological jealousy before. Yes, there are people who are jealous, and there is no real basis for that jealousy other than an abnormal belief, a strong conviction that their partner is cheating.
So they just convince themselves, or is
they don't convince themselves. But it is an illness.
Okay.
What we call delusions.
Okay.
The same way another person can say, I am the president of Nigeria, this President Buhari is just pretending, and we all know that this person is probably not well.
Yes,
you understand? The same way people can have different types of delusions. There can also be a delusion of jealousy, where somebody believes that their partner is cheating on them, even though they have no hard evidence to substantiate that belief. And so people can commit crimes of passion. If somebody thinks his spouse is cheating, he can be violent towards that spouse. If we take alcohol abuse or other drug abuse, where the partner raises a case, say, you are drinking too much, why don't you reduce it? And then the response is a violent outburst that can become physical, or might just be an emotional type of violence. You understand? So these are ways in which mental illness can have an interplay with gender-based violence on the side of the perpetrator. There are several other examples that one can give, but the direct answer to that is that yes, it can contribute to it. But like I said at the beginning, it should not be taken. It is a diagnosis of exclusion. That's what we call it. It is not the norm that when somebody abuses his partner or her partner, we will assume first that the person is unwell. No, we assume that the person is well and knows exactly what he's doing, unless we have evidence to the contrary.
So do you have people come into your clinic and say, oh, I think I have a problem? You know, like, I remember when we talked about depression, you say people, bring other people, recommend, okay, come to the clinic and check yourself. Do you have people come in to say, oh, I'm doing this, but I don't know what is responsible? That's when people say, oh, I don't know, it's the devil. And then some people take them to church and start trying to conduct deliverance that they're doing. But do you have people come in to actually say, oh, I think I have a problem, I can't manage my emotions, I burst out, unreasonably? Is it possible? Does it happen?
No, that happens. I will say that not very common. It's not the norm. The norm is to have more of the person at the receiving end come to the hospital, because if somebody is a victim of gender-based violence, they too can have mental health sequelae for which they can land in hospital. And sometimes when you are talking to that type of person, you begin to get an insight into the mindset of the abuser, and you begin to get an inclination that that person may be unwell, and then you may offer some counseling to say, look, you need to get help for this person. But yes, we've had a few occasions. Personally, I've had those instances where somebody would come on and to say, look, I think I've got an anger management problem, or I can't control my emotions and it's affecting my relationships and things like that. Yes. Okay,
that's great. So now, I remember when cases of, especially one of the popular singers in Nigeria who, well, I don't think the whole story is out. People said she was actually abused, in the home. Then a particular word came up, as a trait. People said, oh, that's the attributes of a narcissist, or somebody that's having narcissistic traits. It just started coming up, and people started talking about it and calling out this particular set, giving, I've heard it a whole lot, but somehow it's difficult to really say, is it a mental health problem that they're trying to deal with, or what do you say to? I know it's a whole broad thing to.
It's a very broad thing, but again, it is difficult to just by reading snippets on newspapers or social media. Decide that somebody has a certain diagnosis. As a professional, one may suspect, but when you haven't examined the patient, you do not have the full facts of the matter, you can't come to that conclusion to say that the person has a mental health problem. The word narcissism is used in the context of, well, there's what you call a narcissistic personality disorder, which is an illness, but it can also be a personality trait that somebody has and manifests in their day-to-day life, just like we all have our different personality traits and things like that. But again, these things do not excuse violent behavior. They do not excuse gender-based violence and all that. In mental health, we talk about diminished responsibility. When somebody commits, say, murder on the basis of a mental health condition, maybe a voice says to the person, kill this other person, and then the person carries out the act. If the court determines that, oh, this person acted upon the background of a mental illness, it doesn't exonerate the person completely. It's just what we call diminished responsibility. So that instead of sentencing the person to death or life imprisonment, the person may be committed to a hospital where he will be treated, but it's not going to be allowed to just walk the streets free. So for me, the important thing is not throwing those words around. I would rather focus on identifying gender-based violence, identifying abuse, because it can be subtle. A lot of people are in it and they are not immediately aware that that is what is going on until something terrible happens.
That was the thing I was going to ask. You know, how do you identify it? I was telling you a story of a family member who didn't even know she was being abused. She didn't even know that she was a victim. I think she just heard somebody talking about the same story we talked about, and the person died, and it dawned on her that, oh, I'm actually, she didn't know. She thought it was normal, you know. So how is somebody supposed to know that, look, I'm in this problem? Because when you say gender-based violence, some people might not even know what it is. You know, it's normal. I'm surprised. I was surprised to hear there's some cultures that correct women, you know, by flogging them. So to that lady, to her, she's just being corrected. She doesn't even know that that's what she's going through. So how do we?
Well, one way of knowing is what we are doing is by bringing the topic to the fore for people to discuss and for people to learn. And the first things we must say is that it's not all about physical violence, and you mentioned that in your intro. So it's not only when somebody lifts his hand to beat you or use a koboko to spank or something like that. There are several aspects to it. Now, somebody who is planning to, and there are people who methodically plan out the abuse. So isolation is a form of gender-based violence. There are people who get married and then their partner finds a way to isolate them from all their support structures. So your parents can't visit, your family can't visit. Now you are married, I don't want you talking to any of your former friends. It may first start with, oh, I don't want you talking to any male friends. And then if it's a woman, for example, and then later it goes to even your female friends are bad influence, I don't want you talking to anybody. In some instances, it gets as bad as the person seizing your phone, banning you from access to emails and things like that. So you see methodical isolation, and then it graduates to you cannot work. I just want you to be in the home and look after the children. So you don't even have work colleagues. Then it graduates to you cannot go out without my permission. You see examples of people in different, and now this cuts across socioeconomic boundaries. And you see people, maybe a very rich person who is isolating a wife like that, and when the wife is going to go out, is going to ensure that the wife goes out with a plethora of security men to guide and whatever. And then there's now economic starvation, where the person makes sure that you are completely financially dependent on him or her. So meaning that even if you want to run away, you don't have transport money. It's as bad as people using money. You know, the abuser can weaponize money. Oh, because we've had a disagreement, I'm not going to pay for this, I'm not going to do that, I'm not going to give you money for that. So that people should realize that it's not just physical violence, it's not just rape. Those are not the only two things that constitute gender-based violence. In fact, usually those ones come at the tail end.
So isolation is one of it.
Yes.
Which is called, because when you're talking, I'm just thinking of this same family member who who it's exactly the same thing. You know, you can't use phone, only when I'm available, then I will show you what you need to. You know, when they had the NIN, you know, you had to link your phone line. And I called her once and she said, oh, that she's not been able to do her linking. So now you can't even call anybody. You can only be reached, you know. So the person was completely ostracized, cut off from everybody. So that's isolation, very important. And then it builds gradually before it even gets to the physical abuse. So now the victim, is it because, does it have anything to do with you don't have a strong willpower? Initially, I would say, just get up, Ali. Why are you there? This is what they do to you. But you see the person, no, I give it time. It will change. Is it lack of willpower, or is just, why would somebody want to stay in that kind of environment?
The Minister of Works once said, may our faith not be tested. Okay? We established at the beginning that most people will go into marriage because they are in love. Okay? And then most people will go into marriage with the hope that it is a lasting relationship.
Of course.
When things begin to go sour, there will usually be an attempt to see if you can make it work. It's not always an easy decision to get up and go away. In the case of a person who has been ostracized, a person can feel completely stranded.
Yes, of course, economic.
She knows that she should leave, but leave and go where? To who? Culture sometimes also entrenches this behavior. So you have cultures where people will say to their female children, you have gone, or don't ever come back to our house. What they are saying is whatever problems you have, deal with it. On the one hand, you look at it that yes, we discourage divorce, we discourage separation and things like that. But on the other hand, you are telling the person you're on your own. Whatever you meet there, face it. And then you have people who speak up about their problems, and what kind of counsel do they get? Well, it's everywhere. Well, me too, that's how me and your daddy were doing. Go and deal with your own and face it. And of course, there's stigma. Nobody wants to be labeled a divorcee. Nobody wants to be said not to be able to keep a home and things like that. So you have all of these factors coming together, and it keeps people there. At that point also, it is possible that the person is already emotionally battered. The mental health has taken a dip, and the person is not taking decisions with a clear mind. Okay? So it's like somebody who has suffered a fracture, and you're asking the person to run. The person can't run because the leg is broken. And the person who is in that state of terrible abuse within the context of a marriage relationship is emotionally broken and cannot take clear decisions. So the person on the outside is going to look like, but this is a simple thing now. Carry your bag and go. But it's not that easy. Sometimes you think of it, children are now involved. And we know women can be particularly attached to their children.
Of course.
I will not leave my children behind. Yet she doesn't have capacity to take care of the children if she takes them with her. So they would rather stay there together. And you see people saying things like, I'm only staying because of my children and things like that. So nobody should be judged if they decide to stay or whether they decide to leave. Neither is an easy decision to come to.
So how do you advise now for someone who is, because it's from what you're saying now, it's opening my mind to see how difficult it actually is for the person, you know, especially for the women. I'll say the women. I don't think it's the same. It might be the same thing exactly for the male gender. The male gender, in most cases, is in control. In most cases, not in every, but it's almost in control. So he can wake up tomorrow and say, "Look, I'm done with this. I'm going. I'm moving to somewhere and start somewhere." But how will this victim now? Maybe there's somebody watching and is sitting down in the house, and knowing that, look, everything has been taken away from you. I'm sitting here. What's your counsel to the person to find help? Oh God, this is so sorry.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, I can imagine how difficult a discussion this is. First, talking about men, I think it suffices to acknowledge that men can also be victims of gender-based violence. However, we know that women are far more likely to suffer gender-based violence than men. So it's okay for us to keep the discussion focused on women. So if somebody finds out that they are in this terribly compromised situation where safety is of concern, what can they do? First is that help is available, even within the confines of law enforcement agencies. Most of our law enforcement agencies have gender desk. The police have a gender desk. The civil defense have a gender desk where a person can go to and report, and hopefully meet a responsible officer, because we know that they are training and retraining their people. But you see, certain people still carry their own cultural beliefs to work. And when you go and report to them, they will say it's a family matter. Go and resolve it. Hey, madam, don't leave your house for another woman to come and raise your children. Go back home. That's not the job of the policeman. Your job is to attend to the complaint of the person and ensure that she's in a safe place. And don't return her back to the place where she's running from. So, having said that, so there's help within that context, especially where safety is of concern. If there's been beating, threats of killing or causing terrible bodily harm to the person, then the person should seek safety. Sometimes people also devise very ingenious ways of communicating their pain. Okay? So, for example, a person, all communication equipment have been taken away. But fortunately, there are certain situations where the woman will at least have to go out. Maybe she's washed the clothes and she needs to go and spread the clothes on the clothesline, or she has to take the child for immunization, or she has to buy something in the market. Those are opportunities where people can quickly call for help. When they are alone at the mercy of the abuser, it is not advisable that those moves are made, okay, when help is not available. So the best thing sometimes would be, as much as possible, to play the fool and wait for an opening, for a window of opportunity where somebody can call for help.
Okay, so now let me zero into marriage. You know, the Minister of Women Affairs, Nigerian Minister of Women Affairs and Social Development, was suggesting that she said she was going to speak to the Minister of Interior for them to agree that every psychiatric test should be part of the prerequisites for marriage. You know, so everybody should go into do some form. So I'm wondering, what do you are the expert. I don't know what you'll be looking out for. If everybody come, if every Nigerian that wants to get married come, to your office and they're looking for what test to do to qualify them to marry, I don't know how you would tell them you cannot marry. I don't know how that is going to happen. But as funny as it sounds, isn't it something that should be considered? Well, yeah. Let me I don't want to push it any further.
Well, I think the first thing I want to say is that I appreciate the concern of the Honorable Minister of Women Affairs. What she has said is a demonstration of how passionate she is about the issue of gender-based violence. Okay. However, in my personal capacity, I will disagree, just on the basis of how, what's the language now, how feasible that kind of move will be. It's going to be very difficult. It's an opportunity for me to discuss about how many psychiatrists we have in Nigeria, serving a population of 200 million people. People are traveling every day. Our doctors are, we are bleeding, we are hemorrhaging doctors at a very fast rate. So those of us remaining, you want us to come and be checking whether people can marry, whether they cannot marry. It's very difficult. And I always say, when people talk about a mental health assessment, if I see somebody today and I declare the person mentally fit, does it guarantee that the person will be mentally fit tomorrow? And if I say somebody is unwell today, does it mean the person cannot be well tomorrow? Why then should that decision be made based on a mental health assessment? I think it will bring a lot of stigmatization in terms of mental health, which is what we are fighting against, that people shouldn't suffer discrimination based on their mental health situation. So we'll be working against ourselves by stigmatizing people. Having said that, I have also been an advocate that at least for premarital, as part of preparations towards marriage, perhaps drug tests should be taken. Because that one, we can find out whether a person has a drug abuse problem or not. And that is so that the person who is marrying the person can know that they are not just packaging somebody for me to go and start dealing with in marriage. But again, these are things that are not cast in stone. People can always beat it now. If somebody knows that he will take a drug test during premarital counseling, he will just keep away from it for a little while. Then after your test, he will go and continue his behavior and things like that. I think our focus should be on getting help for victims, ensuring justice, and justice that is delivered in a timely manner. Training our security personnel more on how to respond to gender-based violence complaints, rather than the traditional, is a family matter, go and settle it at home. Creating safe homes, safe havens for women, and then finding ways that we can identify. If you look, there was a woman, it wasn't in Nigeria now, who was in a hostage situation, a case of gender-based violence, and was able to call for help when she ordered for pizza. Either she wrote something at the back of a slip or the carton of the pizza or something. There was something she did, and it was the pizza company that sent police to the address and rescued the woman. So all of us, because if somebody has only one window of opportunity to call for help, she doesn't know who the person she's approaching is. It might be a bread seller, it might be a doctor, it might just be a cab driver. All of us need to be educated so that when we see somebody in distress, at least we'll inform law enforcement that I saw so thing, I'm concerned at so address. Let them go and find out by themselves. Because the woman who is suffering gender-based violence and just has 3 minutes to buy sardine next door and come back may not necessarily run into a policeman.
Of course.
But she should be able to tell whoever she sees, I'm in trouble, get me help.
Okay, because I'm going to stay more on this. We're just going to break and come back to start wrapping up. But I'm going to stay more on this, on how people outside can help, who to report to. I'm sure you have those information on who to report, especially in our climb. You know, in other countries, just a phone call and then you already have a parade of experts there trying to solve evils. But here, I don't even know if people know what to do than to start. I don't know how they respond to it. But when we come back, we'll just talk about that as we start wrapping up the program. We'll be right back, viewers. On this show, we focus on the journey from girlhood to womanhood and everything in between.
You hear such comments like it's not ladylike, because there is a way a lady should behave.
Please don't ask a man out. I beg you. We are so cultured that the day you do.
It is in that place of fellowship that you get to discover all these things.
You discover yourself.
Yes.
Biology-wise, women are able to progress faster into addiction than the men.
Don't crucify the woman for wanting financial security.
Remember, every woman is worthy by design.
Welcome back, viewers. Before we went on the break, we were discussing gender-based violence, and my guest is still Dr. Olusegun Soyombo. He's a consultant psychiatrist at the National Hospital here in Abuja. Thank you so much so far.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so before we went on the break, we were discussing, you were talking about how we can collectively help, you know, a victim. That's somebody who's a victim, yes. And that's what I want to say. People that see that someone is in trouble, how do you go about finding help for the person? I don't know if going there and say, Madam, leave before they will kill you, you know. I don't think that's because that's what is in everybody's mind, you know. Leave now, you want them to kill you. How many days? He beat you yesterday, beat you today, you know. That's not the solution. It's not going to, that's not going to bring up, or maybe it will, but so how do we, people that, you know, are around them, because you have neighbors, you have family, how do they, how can...
Well, I don't think there's only one way of helping, because there will usually be different scenarios. So circumstances are not always the same. Well, sometimes you may have to go there.
Okay.
Sometimes you have to call police. Sometimes it is you that will call the woman's relations to say, are you people aware that this is happening to your person here, and things like that. So there are different ways. It depends on the circumstance. Really, I know that the police have a few numbers published online for people to report, and I think I've seen that list before. Was it in every state of the federation or geopolitical zone? They have numbers like that. I think in every state of the federation that people can call if they have it. I've never tried any of the numbers, but I mean they made that effort to publish numbers. A lot of NGOs work in the area of gender-based violence, but you see, the ordinary person on the street may not know what an NGO is, or what their phone number is, or how to call the police. So, but there are other institutions around. We have our traditional institutions, we have our faith-based organizations where people can go and call for help. We have our residents association. If somebody lives in a compound where there are 12 flats and you are hearing noise that somebody is beating somebody, the residents may be the one who are going to come out and say enough of this, and then provide the woman a safe place to stay while waiting for other things to.
So we shouldn't just look and say that's their family problem.
No, nobody should. So otherwise we'll all be guilty. If you hear the sound and look the other way, and then you heard the following morning that the woman has died. I mean, the case you talked about, which is in public domain, people later came out to talk, to say that they were aware. Now, it's not enough to just be aware. What did you do? Now, again, we cannot blame people. It is not your call whether somebody leaves or somebody stays. Just make sure you provide adequate support for that person. Sometimes the person is just looking for a green light. I mean, if the person leaves that house, where would that person sleep that night? So if you are not able to offer that, you are not the one who is going to tell that person to leave. So I know I'm rambling a lot, but I think the crux of the matter is that circumstances will differ, and each circumstance will be treated on its own merit. Whichever way, help must come. However, wherever it is coming from, help must come.
Yeah, you know, even when the issue became a big, you know, it was a big talk everywhere. You know, you still wonder. Some people still had their own defense, you know, for let's say some people still don't believe that there was need to live there because they still feel, scripturally or well, I know for scripturally, a woman should not leave her home. The marriage is for better, for worse, And I was surprised that people were still sounding, especially people in authority in the churches who were still standing on the ground. Of course, marriage is not for every little thing you get up and leave, but people didn't want to say she should have moved. Even though some people were saying, this should have happened, or the person should have asked for help. But there were some people that were still holding this, the sanctity of marriage must be maintained. What do you tell this kind of people, Because there's some people that would rather hold on to, I'm trying as much as possible to go around this word so that I don't say exactly what I want to. But some people will still hold on to, yes, the sanctity of marriage should stand, and after all, just as you said earlier, there are some women that have been through the same thing. Even some people are thinking of, one day I will give a grand testimony that, my husband beat me for years and suddenly he changed and now I'm a happy person, waiting for that testimony that will shake the whole globe. If you understand me, I'm trying to drive at. Yeah.
Now that's the unfortunate situation where a lot of people are. But I mean, let me say you are dragging me away now from psychiatry into you are trying to put full fish out of water, but I will try my best. There is sanctity of marriage, but there is sanctity of life also. And I don't think that the sanctity of marriage supersedes the sanctity of life. I will not get into that argument, even if somebody wants to drag me into it. But if there's a superior argument, and if we are talking scriptures now, I would like to see where it is in the Bible that people should stay in abusive relationships. I do not think that the for better, for worse that people make in their marital vows refers to abuse. It probably talks more about pulling through difficult circumstances together. What do we do if there's an economic downturn? What do we do if we have delay in having children and things like that? But when somebody is repeatedly battering the other person, and we know, you see, you never know where violence will end. People have been killed over supporting Arsenal and Chelsea. Just one blow and a person dies. So nobody, not even a pastor, can guarantee that woman that the next blow will not kill her. So I will not be dragged into the discussion of separation or divorce or something. I will stay on my lane. I'm a doctor and I'm going to ask for safety, whatever safety means. If safety means leaving the house, then so be it. Because nothing trumps that. I've admitted people into hospital just to separate. If a patient comes to hospital and I know that this patient is being abused in the house and this patient is physically well enough, if I don't admit you in the hospital, you are going back to that same house where they are abused. I admit you now, stay on the hospital bed while we are trying to resolve issues, because there's got to be safety, whatever safety means.
So the sanctity of life is written on whatever sanctity of marriage or whatever. I like that point.
My opinion.
That's your opinion.
I'm not wearing a collar.
Yes, it's an opinion, but it makes sense. It makes a lot of sense. So don't die waiting for one magnificent testimony of how things change, because we don't know when it's going to end. Now, that's bringing me, because you say I'm pulling you out of your... I know, yes, we've talked about the psychiatry. We've pretty much delved into the areas, knowing what is in the mind of the person. But just like he said in the beginning, you're not a babalawo, you can't be in people's mind. So it's what they present to you that you say, this is what you work with. But I want to also hear another part of this discussion, which is while I'm staying on marriage, I don't want to go into rape and all, because those ones are, it's a full topic of discussion and so on.
Absolutely.
But when it comes to marriage, which is where most of this happen most of the time, the ones we're faced with. You see people giving premarital, what we call premarital counseling. You know, you tell people the rules of marriage as a Christian, and then you go through. I'm sure before you got married, you went through that. You know, is that enough? Because we know, we're not saying that of course, there are good marriages. There are marriages that are doing very well. But we're looking at, since this thing is increasing, even when we're singing about it and talking about it, you're still seeing people going through it. Let's go to the area where everybody kind of goes to. So if you're in the church, most likely before you marry you must have some form of counseling, you know, a couple of weeks. Do you think it's enough, some of the things we talk about or that are presented and give you rules and things not to do and do this and do that? I don't think much is talked about mental health. And nobody said, okay, this is what you do if you're in an abusive relationship. Nobody says anything. I didn't hear that in mine. But do you think it's enough to prepare somebody on the journey? Somebody on journey of marriage, where people's character will change at different time. I'm not dragging you, just
You know, you have dragged me already.
dragged you out.
You have dragged me already. I am not part of any premarital counseling group. I do not know their curriculum.
Okay.
What I know about premarital counseling will be what I went through too when I was preparing to get married. If I say it is not enough, it will sound judgmental.
Okay.
But that is not the intention. I will say it is not enough on the basis that no pastor, no counselor can prepare you for marriage in 3 months or 6 months. The people that gave birth to you, what have they been doing? The mother that raised you, the father that raised you, your older siblings, your larger community, what have they been doing that all the responsibility to prepare you for marriage will now be heaped on a church by just a few hours of interaction? How many weeks, how many hours altogether? But that part of it is very important. What the church is doing is very, very important. If we want to assess it statistically, they are doing enough.
Okay.
Because I am certain that the vast majority of marriages will last for long. There are more marriages that last than those that break.
Of course, yes.
And if we use that metric to assess what the church is doing, certainly it will be far more than an average mark. We'll probably be scoring 70 or something, which is a good mark. But no, we want 100. So there is more that needs to be done. So I hope what I'm saying makes sense. But I'm saying that the preparation starts far before. People who are damaged are already damaged, and premarital counseling may not fix them. So we have a responsibility to raise our boys responsibly. We have a responsibility to raise our girls responsibly. We cannot be teaching some people how to make soap, how to do tie and dye, how to bake cake, how to be good wives and good mothers, and then we are not talking to the other group about how to be responsible gentlemen, okay, about how to respect boundaries, about how not to be violent, you know. So it has to be balanced. So the work is far more than the work of premarital counseling, but that's not in any way to dismiss the importance of premarital counseling. The things that are discussed in premarital counseling for a lot of people are things that nobody had ever discussed with them. Who discusses sex with you? For those who have kept themselves pious and have obeyed the injunctions of the Bible, who is going to teach them those things and all that? So and again, another thing that I think that the church can do is to celebrate successful marriages more, so that we are modeling what marriage can be for the younger people. If your birthday is on a Sunday, we can call you out in church and sing happy birthday to you. But I think that we should begin to call out people too when they do their wedding anniversaries. I think all of us should take the responsibility. If it is your wedding anniversary, go and do Thanksgiving in church. Let it be on the bulletin that you are celebrating. Is my personal opinion. It's not that I'm talking to myself too. It's not that I've been doing it. But I hope you get the drift.
Yes, I get
so that we are
saying,
celebrating it more, and then the younger people can see that marriages can indeed be happy. They can indeed be in very happy unions and things like that. I don't think there's a magic bullet that solves all the problems.
Okay, thank you so much. I think that's a good place to pause because, yes, because putting it out there that the whole training, even the issue of the violence that people met today, if somehow if you trace it, may have a roots to home or people's upbringing. Yeah. Because I listened to a lady and she said her husband was abusing her because she had the third female child. And to her, she was brought up in a home where the father celebrated them as ladies, felt they were the best. So to her, she didn't see any problem with the lady. But for the man, she found out from his home, his dad didn't think women had any value. So he said, after all, they're going to get married, so why should we even bother trading them or making them of any value? So you see, that has translated into the man's life, and he was now putting it out in the family. So just as you said, the training is not just that, it starts from the home, so which means it's good to raise our children well. Identify whatever trait is unusual in them and start to seek for help early enough so that you can nip it in the bud before you get them married. Don't just marry them off to somebody else's child and expect them to go and become a nuisance and, create problem. Thank you so much, Dr. Jumbo, for coming on the program.
A pleasure, always.
Today I have learned a lot because this is really it is a heavy. Anytime I'm talking about it, I think of a lot of things and it's really heavy in the heart. And I believe our viewers, have listened and learned from today what we have talked about. In fact, I love the way we ended the program, talking about the training of every child is from the home. And whatever you put in a child, that's what they become when they grow. So I believe if you're watching and you're in an abusive relationship, just like we've talked about, please seek for help, call for help, talk to someone, meet people, even in your church, talk to somebody and get help. Please don't die in silence. It's of no use. You can still get help and you can be alive. And your marriage can be fixed if, everything is done well. But first of all, seek help. Thank you so much for joining us today on the program. I'll see you next time. My name is Angela Emeka Ebibu. Goodbye.